Hello, everyone, and welcome to the FCBDU podcast, your backstage pass to the magical world of Fat Chance Belly Dance style. I'm your host, DeAnna, and I invite you to join me along with a variety of special guests and experts as we explore the beauty, intricacies, and lifestyle topics of this captivating dance style. Grab a comfortable seat, tune in, and let's embark on a journey through the rhythms, movements, and history that make Fat Chance Belly Dance style an enchanting experience like no other. In this episode, we are finishing up our Creating Success series. This is part 5. Lacey and I are going to discuss some common obstacles and ways we overcome them. Then we're going to get into a discussion on the topic of habits and how to create effective habits. So grab your notes and get ready for more inspiration and get ready to make your dreams a reality. So let's talk about obstacles, right? Because like Lacey just said, sometimes you make a goal, right? You have a plan and something happens and you realize this is not working out. Now, Mark and I, maybe it was Lacey and I, we were talking about how, January 1, everybody's in the gym. And then like 2 weeks later, it's crickets in there, it's so fast. And because first of all, you have to think about the mindset, right? Sometimes people go to the gym because they're like, I want to get healthier. And they think that that's the only way to do it because that's what everybody's supposed to be doing. Doing. So it just wasn't for them. And that's fine. They'll find something that is. But if you think about the prana, right? The prana, and then you create your SMART goals, then you're already doing a wonderfully job at limiting obstacles that could come up in your way because you know what the motivation is behind it and how you're going to get there. And it's realistic.
Oh, yeah. So I have a slightly different approach. I automatically assume there'll be an obstacle. I go in knowing there will be because that is my realistic outlook. Because my personality type is that I won't do something unless I know that it will be perfect. And that is dumb. Right? Like, that's dumb. So the way that I have managed that mindset is to be like, crap's going to happen. Like, it's just gonna. So sometimes with a goal, I try to figure out what the obstacles might be. Like, okay, here's what I want. What are some things that are probably going to distract me? Because that is what an obstacle is a distraction. Mm-hmm. So I saw this and I was like, oh, this is so good. And there's a part of me, because it's an absolute that I don't love, but I'm going to share it because I think that it'll spark something that's good. So it says, be impossible to distract.
Ooh.
So that can mean a lot of things. So impossible to distract for me, the way because I was like, oh, I love that as a tagline, but also kind of like tricky. So what I like interpreted that to be is boundaries, right? So boundaries are what keep you focused. So we could take the be impossible to distract. So, and talking about time, right? So I was like, okay, treasure time, investment and time, mandatory time, empty time. So if I'm really trying to get my video filmed, because Lord knows filming is like a hard thing. Like I want to get things filmed, getting my ass in the room is hard. So what I end up doing is things go on airplane mode, right? I can't be distracted, right? I can't do things. So go on airplane, do not disturb, no chimes, set a timer. Like we've heard all of these things, but they are tried and true because it'd be impossible to distract. And I will be so bold to give tough love to say, if you're not willing to do those things, if you're not willing to be impossible to distract, how bad do you want it?
Right.
If you can't put things out, if you can't create that thing, then do you really want it? Right? Do you really want to do the thing? So distractions, because distractions become obstacles. I'm distracted by this, so then I'm not focused, so then this happens. So a way to also approach that is a to-don't list. So you have now that borderlines on the positivity train, but I think it could be helpful in anticipating distractions, anticipating obstacles. Mm-hmm. So I am not going to get up in the morning and immediately grab my phone. Positive is that instead I'm going to get up, get a cup of coffee and grab my book and read for 5 minutes. I'm going to feel that I'm going to want to do this and scroll and like look up news. But what I want to do is fill myself up. So my to-do list is don't get your phone. List is grab your book, right? So giving space to know what you're going to want to do and then remind yourself what you do want to do. And that's an obstacle. I mean, it's a silly one, sure, but it's a real one. Yeah. So I love the idea of the to-don't list. And then with the obstacles, what I found as another kind of positive is how do you maximize your energy? So to me, when things come up, they deflate you, right? If, oh, I meant to read, but I got my phone, deflate, right? I wanted to do a lot of things. 2020 happened, deflate, lack of motivation, lack of. So how do you continue to maximize your energy that keeps you going? What fills you up? What keeps your drive? What makes you want to spend the time? So it's a tagline, but it also can be a motivation. It can be as simple of, is this deflating or increasing my energy to want to do something? Mm-hmm. So if you're not even sure what things are empty time and what things are, like, if you don't even know, which I think is a completely realistic thing. Like, I don't even know. I start my day, I end my day, I'm not happy. Like, that can be absolutely, like, something that was really justifiable to me was I watched the concert with Adele recently, and she like had an interview with Oprah, and she just talked. So she didn't, all of that, but she had talked about like nothing happened. She just wasn't happy. She was supposed to be. She had all of this, but she wasn't happy. So she had to sit with the idea of, why am I not happy? Right? So then there was all of this publicity around how she had lost weight. And really all that was a way for her to maximize her energy. She was like, I can't do what I know to do. I need to stay active. I need to get out of my head. I'm going to run on the treadmill. And then that got her to be like, oh, I don't like, this makes me feel good. She didn't mean to lose any weight. It wasn't even the goal. The goal was just to get out of her head, to be less anxious, and to fill her time with something else. That was the actual goal. And I was like, wow, if someone like Adele cannot be happy for no good reason, then that is also okay that I sometimes am not happy. So what is taking my energy? What is giving me energy? How do I want to maximize it? Okay, so when that obstacle comes up, like, is that where I want to throw myself? Do I have an option? Because that's a really great thing that Alex tells me all the time. A lot of times obstacles come up. Do you even need to interact with it? Or do you just think? And I'm like, oh, that hurts.
That hurts a little.
It hurts. It stings. Right? Because I feel like that is also true. Right? Like, do you actually need to? Or is it just that, like, okay, so a rock just got thrown in front of you. Can you go around it? Mm-hmm. Like, and all of these things are kind of platitudes, sure, but they're also kind of true, because what an obstacle does is it stops you, but you need to find a way to maximize your energy so that it doesn't. Right. So when you find this, like, you are chukka, 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 and you're going, and then whoop, like, how can you continue your momentum, deal with it and move on, and don't let it keep you there? Like, that's the thing. Whenever I'm thrown a problem or an obstacle, I'm like, okay, it needs my attention, like, obviously, but how much of it? How much of it? And does it detract, or is it just trying to distract me? Right? Yeah. So how do you minimize the distraction of an obstacle? And sometimes, man, crap happens, and 100%, and recognize what is a real obstacle and a real pause button, and what is simply a distraction. Simply an energy suck, right? And try to categorize even those.
Yeah. And I have to say, when you go back, it goes all the way back to the very first talk that we were talking about, like the whole, like, why are you even wanting this goal? So something that I think we need to understand, and how I see this very, very often, is I have this goal in mind. I have this want, this will, I'm going for it. And then I think I'm going to get there this way that I have all planned out. I got it specific, measurable, attainable, all of the realistic, time bound, everything. And then I run into this obstacle that no matter what I do, it keeps hitting me. Right. So then I had to back up and say, okay, what is my goal that I'm wanting to do? Okay, let me step back from like this blind side, this blindness of going in this one direction, and look at it and go, oh, I can get there this way. Like, don't give up. Just look at and reevaluate it. And what
Yes.
happens
Yeah.
is if you're living in that flow, like this is where I feel like this flow happens, all of a sudden you find yourself on this other path, still going in that same toward that same goal, but now you're on this other path that ends up oftentimes being even better than the
Yeah.
original
Sometimes
thought.
an obstacle is an opportunity.
Right, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Because
being able to step back.
yeah, we have to not be rigid. I think that that's a great lesson too. Like we do all of these things and it's like, okay, here you go. And then have to be like, there's a great, I love the movie Under the Tuscan Sun. And it's basically a writer and she ends up in Tuscany and she buys a house and all of these things happen. And at the beginning of the movie, she says she wants all these things in the house that she bought. And then at the end, she's kind of complaining and she's like, and then a friend basically was like, you told me you wanted this. You told me you wanted that. You told me you wanted this. And all of it happened, but not in the way she thought it would. But she literally got everything she asked for.
Yeah.
So it's making sure that, and that has happened in my own life, you know, and things like that, where in the most heated argument I have ever had with my husband, he explained to me that it was like, you literally have everything you asked me for, you know? Yeah. Like I couldn't get out of my own way. I was my own obstacle. Like that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, being open. And I think all of that comes down to, so again, getting like a little philosophical, but that comes down to writing things down, always observing, how have things changed, because the change is inevitable. So again, like being prepared with that, to go with the flow, to be like, okay, well, my goal was to have, let's just say, we'll turn it totally into a positive. So my goal was to have an hour practice in 6 months. Well, wow, I was so motivated by that. Like I'm at my goal in 3 months. So now what? Right? So now what are you going to do? Right? Like, are you going to utilize that time for something else? Or, so changes are to be expected. Like, are you going to stay rigid? No, I'm going to hold myself to 30 minutes. Like, if you want to do the thing, Yeah. Yeah, because sometimes things happen in a different way than you thought. So stay open, stay mindful, come back to your goals over and over again. Like remind yourself always of what you're looking for so that you stay like open, but also like cognizant of like your surroundings, kind of a thing.
Yeah. And celebrate the small wins, right?
Oh God, always.
So yeah,
always.
Celebrate the small wins, because that's just going to reiterate like, yes, I'm going to do this other thing. It's like giving yourself a little pat on the back.
Absolutely. Because every step gets you up the mountain, like every one of them. And you couldn't get up the mountain unless, because like, that's one of my favorite phrases, which is also kind of daunting. But like, once you get to the top of the mountain you're trying to climb, there's like a whole range waiting for you.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's never done, which is both comforting and daunting. But, you just go, all right, well, one foot in front of the other. Like, so yeah.
Very cool.
Did we hit everything? Oh, well, yeah.
I think we're going to get into habits.
Okay.
Lacey says, I just realized I need to start with weekly goals. Monthly themes are too advanced for me. And that's fine, right? That's what we were talking about. It doesn't have to be like my 2020 thing. It can be my week, my day. Like all these can come into play however you want them to. You can have a bigger picture and just like think about it, 1 week at a time. Totally fine. We're giving you ideas to identify it. Identify those things, and hopefully even if it's like one thing, like turning it into a positive way of looking at something can shift your mindset and motivate you to achieve your goals.
I just love how much, Lacey, you were able to figure that out, right? Like I love how much you like, wait a minute, I need to blah blah. I mean, that is huge. That's its own pat on the back. Like you realize, because that's going to make you more successful. You were like, okay, well, how can I achieve this? Oh, this feels too big. I need to try this. You know what I mean? I think that's great. Good job.
Make it more realistic.
Exactly. Oh, my nose is so good. There we go. Okay.
So to kind of bring this into kind of round all of this out, we've created these goals. We understand why we're creating them, what the most successful goals, what types of mindset, bring in the most successful goals, how to create them, how to visualize them and really identify our whys, how to deal with some obstacles that might happen throughout life. But then what can we do every day to make sure that our goals happen? And this goes into what Heather was saying earlier, where she said, like, sometimes it's a matter of just putting your shoes your running shoes next to the bed, or having your finger symbols on your nightstand, or, it can be something like adding fresh elastic into your finger symbols and like placing them next to the remote control so you don't watch TV instead, or whatever. So there are so many different ways that you can create healthy habits. I think, Lacey, the thing that you gave us earlier with the time is such a great way to look at that in order to start creating, like, what are the habits that I need to create, and think about that positive shift. So for me, I know that I don't want to look at I don't check my phone when I first wake up, right? But instead of telling myself, don't check your phone when you wake up, because it's going to reiterate. What does it reiterate every time I wake up in the morning? Your phone, your phone, your phone. Like, don't get your phone. So instead, I have learned what my routine needs to be in the morning, and why that's beneficial to me, right? I know that I am more myself with less outside influences and more creative when I spend my morning coffee, journaling, a little pranayama, reading. Like, I have a list of the things that I do in my morning routine. So I think about the things I want to bring in. So I create my habits based off of, I look at my goals and then kind of break that out, and then also know what my, what has worked, like, what are my habits that are working, and how can I build on that, right? I know if something is next to my bed, I do it first thing in the morning. Like, I know my medication is on my nightstand so that I don't forget to take it. So if you're wanting to get up and run in the morning, maybe having something next to your nightstand, like your Fitbit or your running shoes or something, is going to help you at least get to that point. So many ways to build habits. And then, like what you were saying, Lacey, maybe you start with 5 minutes or 10 minutes, 2 minutes. And if you say, I'm going to commit to 30 minutes, and like the first 3 days, you're like, this isn't working, that's an obstacle. Just back up and say, okay, how about half of that? Let's do 15 minutes.
I'm super realistic when it comes to time. I'm really realistic when it comes to time. I've worked with it enough to know how distracted I am, right? So knowing how you are. And you won't know at first, you know what I mean? Like, it started, like, I don't want to get my phone. I don't want to pick up my phone first. My phone isn't in my room. My phone is out in the living room. I don't like, I don't have now. I recognize there might be some different things. We don't have landlines anymore, right? So if you need, you have children or what have you, but I was like, anyone that's calling me at 3 a.m, there isn't anything I can do anyway. So like, it can just wait until the morning. So that was the compromise that I made, is that it was out. But then that took a while. Like, I found myself at first going to get it first thing in the morning. You know what I mean? So then it was like, okay, well, I got it out of the room. What positive obstacles can I put in between me and my phone to make sure that I don't do that thing, right? So it was like, well, what can I put in front of me that happens sooner? What can I make happen? So I think my point in bringing that up is oftentimes I hear, well, that sounds great. Like, a routine sounds wonderful, but how do I get one, right? You don't just magically arrive. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. You're not going to know for sure. I think really the trick that I've found is the smaller it can be, the better. Something as simple as like putting my clothes out the night before lets me be less anxious and run around crazy the next day. That's like a good example of like an easy solution. And then you'll just figure it out. I liked it when this happened. This wasn't successful. Like, in your goal process, give room for needing to figure it out. Like, you did not fail because it hasn't happened yet. You're working the process, right? Like, you've got to figure out, like, what do I want to do? Like, I love the idea of sitting and journaling in the morning. I haven't gotten there yet. I'm still working at it. I'm trying to figure out how to get the sleep I want and still like have a slow morning and all of those things. Like I'm working it. I'm making notes about like when I was successful and when I wasn't and why, and not giving myself a hard time if it didn't work out one day. Right. So I want to encourage you to do that. And also on the note of time, so for example, the fitness thing is a perfect example. So it sounds like a good idea to run in the morning. That's what people do. You get up and you work out, but that might not be the right time in the day for you to do that. Right. So be really aware in your goals that it might not be that it can't work. You might need to look at when you're trying to do it. Agreed. I figured out, like, when I was the most successful getting my yoga practice in every day was when I did it at 11:30 at night. I did it right before I went to bed. That's when I was the most consistent. I didn't like, it was a compromise because it was like in my mind, I thought I was doing it for fitness. And I was like, I like my body when I'm doing yoga. I'm going to do yoga. Right. But then it was like, well, when it fit in. And so I asked myself, in this moment right now, is yoga more about me having time, getting peaceful, stretching my body, taking care of myself? And I realized that that was really what was more important in that moment than the fitness aspect. I was really just needing time. I was needing breath work. I was needing stretch. I was needing release. And so again, being open enough, because I could have totally shut myself down. I was consistently doing 30 to 45 minutes at 11:30 at night. It was just when it worked.
Yeah.
So I encourage you, as you're going through trying to build your habits, to not force a square peg into a round hole. If it's not working when you're trying to do it, try it at another time. Try it in different increments. It might just need to be that you need to find the recipe for it. Yeah.
It's true. Yeah? It's true. So my husband is he's a morning person, which I've had to work on that. So like I get up he wakes me up at 5 in the morning. I get out of bed at 5:30 because I have to have that little bit of like kind of time. And so he's the kind of person that could get up at 4:30 every morning and go to the gym. And I tried it because I thought that's what people are supposed to do. That's like you start your day and all the things. And you know what it made me do? It made me angry. I was angry for the rest of the day. I was cranky. And then when it came time for me to like teach an evening class or go to dance class, I was not where I wanted to be mentally. And I just knew I wasn't being lazy. It was just, I mean, we can get into Ayurveda and all that another time, but like it just depends on your cycles. My body is super, super stiff. And my joints just don't function in the morning that early. So when I was getting up and doing Ashtanga practice at 6 in the morning, I found that I was angry at myself because I felt like I was just like not getting anywhere in my practice for other reasons. But you know what I mean? And I was like, okay, that's not healthy. That is not why I'm doing my practice. So I just changed it. And so you have to figure out what works for you, but you have to be honest with yourself about what works for you and what doesn't. And you not just use an excuse.
Yeah. And this could be, you could look at it as an obstacle in trying to build your habit. Right. So you're trying to build the habit and be so easy to throw it away, to be like, I just can't work out. I'm just angry about it. It'd be so easy to do that. But if you can stay focused on it and be like, well, okay, so why? So trying to adjust to see if a slight alteration could get you better results. So really, I mean, that's, I think, what I mean by obstacles are bound to happen. Like, it's not the best plan. I don't care. And I say this to myself, no matter how well you plan something, rarely is it actually going to go down like that. The structure is to give you freedom so you can flow through what actually happens, right? Yeah. So like that's really, the way that things typically happen. And I find that ingredient of when is so important, because you'll you'll think things can happen here, here, and here, but the reality is they'll probably work better in a time you didn't even imagine, right? Most of my practice, I fought it for years. Most of my practice is when I'm cooking, right? When I'm in the kitchen, that's when almost all of my dance practice happens. And I fought it forever. I felt like it wasn't appropriate. It wasn't strong enough. It wasn't focused enough or whatever. But I was really focused in that moment. It was focused, isolated practice. I wrote combos. I get drills in and whatever. And it was just where it worked. So I was like, why am I fighting this and making myself feel bad about something that like is obviously working here? You know? So yeah.
It doesn't have to look like everybody else's. And for those of you that like reading about this stuff, there's a whole fantastic book on habits called Atomic Habits by James Cleary, I think is the author. And the audio version is really, really great as well. I think I both read it and listened to it. I don't know which one came first, but it's really good. And it talks about habit stacking. And that I think is what we were talking about earlier, where Heather was talking about earlier, where it was like just doing this one thing, or like brushing your teeth while you're practicing your practicing your shimmies while you're brushing your teeth, right? Working, cooking your dinner and dancing in the kitchen, like stacking those habits on top.
Mandatory time and investment time. Yep.
Yeah. Or like, and then one triggers something else, right? So I get up in the morning and I know I have coffee every morning. Like that's a habit that's not going anywhere. So what else can I do while I'm drinking my coffee? Okay, well, I drink my coffee and I sit down and I journal. That keeps me off my phone. It lets me get more creative. It helps my brain kind of process whatever's been going on in it. So I just kind of, and then what do I do next? Well, then now I've gotten in the habit of, then I get up and I get in the shower, because I know if I get in the shower and then get in my yoga clothes and then I'm more likely to go right downstairs and do my yoga practice or teach my yoga class or whatever. So I've learned like what it all works. It all stemmed from that cup of coffee that I knew I was going to do every day. All right. So if something goes wrong and I don't get my cup of coffee, it throws my entire habits out. But I know for the most part that is going to happen every day. So it's like, I can do this while I'm getting my coffee, and that triggers this other thing, and that triggers this other thing. And also another way that you can incorporate habits is, I'm not going to do this thing that I really like. I'm not going to do this thing that I know I really want to do unless this other thing is done, right? I'm not going to check my phone until I finish at least one page in my journal.
That's like reward system. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm not going to do this until I practice my finger symbols, right?
Sure.
Yes. And you have to enjoy the process of it all too, right? In thinking about like, maybe you are organizing it. You're like, I can't wait to go through like all these memories and how good it's going to feel to be like, that's no longer me anymore. Look how much I've grown. And let me just put that in the donation box, and how great the process of it all is going to be, because that's going to be super important. If you're like, it's daunting, then it's going to be horrible. Right.
Yeah.
So, but if you think about enjoying the process, like, I hate running, y'all. I probably will never run. I've just come to that conclusion after 43 years. I've tried different things, but it's like some people just say like they visualize not like the running part of it, but they visualize like the fresh air in their face and the sunshine on their bodies and all this. And I'm like, good for you. But if you visualize the enjoyment of it. Heather says, yes, that's where I heard it. Atomic Habits. I had forgotten that I listened to that book. It's so good. He has a bullet journal as well. But I'm the same with Lacey. I need structure. And when I open up a book and it's blank, I'm like, I don't know that's just too overwhelming to me. Isn't that funny how like the blank page is overwhelming, but like all the structured boxes is like, this is great. Okay. Wow. Oh my gosh. We've covered so much. And our goal was 2 hours and we went 3, but hey, it happens.
There was so much stuff. There was so much stuff to talk about.
Yeah. So what have you guys, so we're going to round this out. And as we close out, I would love to know what you have found in this conversation, this 3-hour conversation, what you have found to be the most helpful so far. Like what is one thing that's motivated you to take some action? Lacey, what's something that you've taken away?
That I can do it, because I often think I can't. That I can totally do it. And I think that the thing that I found about time, I didn't realize I was working on, but I really liked it. And then I wrote a note down. Hang on, where'd it go? What was it? Nurtured, I'm going to work on. So I really liked the acronyms that I'm going to really work on. I knew them kind of a thing, but I think what I want to do is like really go through and write it all down and be like, all right, you're saying these things, Lacey, but like, let's go through. Because sometimes I'll get a little like, oh, I know that, and I won't do the steps, right?
I know, that's why I put it on the checklist has like, or the handout
Exactly.
has like a checklist.
Yeah, so I think that's going to be a big one. What's your takeaway? What for you?
Mine has been the time. I really, really enjoyed the time classifications, and that was a different way to look at it, because I was looking at it in that quadrant of like what's important, what's urgent, and I think I'd done that so long that I needed a different perspective on it. So I loved like the time. Where am I spending my time? And like starting at the top, and then kind of working my way down and all of that. And it's like, for me, remember my vision board, this vision board is where I want to spend most of my time. And that is that treasured time. Like I want to spend more time in that treasured time. So that has been really helpful. And then also I really enjoyed how you shared your collages that were just like doing the collages and then finding the theme, or like, wow, the motivation behind, and then creating the why. So I really liked that. And I think that I will do that in some of the areas where I'm struggling to create goals.
Nice.
And see what comes out from that. You know, like have an overall, like this collage is going to be about this topic, and then just kind of see what comes from that.
Nice. I love it. Yeah. Trying to, I structure myself so much and I don't give myself a lot of room to just, so yeah, I'm excited to see what comes of your stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah. Love it. Oh, this has been so much fun. I mean, we did for 3 hours. I could go on and on. It's
for
just,
sure.
I think part of it also is just like, when you learn all of these things, then you're able to there are more things to celebrate more often, right? You don't beat yourself up so much because you've set yourself up for the success of reaching your goals. And so then you get excited because you're like, I can do this. Look at me doing this. And then it just invites more and more of that like success and more habits, because it makes you feel really good. When you don't use these tools that we're giving you, maybe you've experienced this, you tend to let obstacles get in your way because you don't know how to deal with them, because you weren't clear in your vision, or your motivation wasn't tied to something that was really true to what you wanted. And so we're just kind of getting all that stuff out of the way to help you be successful, and no matter what your goals are.
Well, and powerful. Like it's all you. Like it's you. And it's your life. So why not make it the best one that you want? You know? I mean, as many things, I mean, there's so much in life, right, that we have to interact with, that if we can hang on to the things and manifest the things that we really want, that'll just make us that much happier as we go through our lives, right? Like, so good.
It's so true. Good. And it reiterates the power that you have to manifest the things.
Yeah. Yeah.
You had the power all along. 3 clicks with your magic stickers.
Oh my God, I love it. Yeah. I don't like to downplay, like, you know, life. Life happens 100%, like absolutely. But if we can, you know, like I look at goals and achieving them and having these tools as your armor, right? Like it lets you take on like all that life is going to throw you, because it's going to continue to throw a lot of stuff at you, you know, like that's just, but the tools are just that. They help you to navigate, to, to maneuver and things like that, instead of feeling once again bogged down by it, right? And not having defenses against it, you know, like when, so that's okay, I'm too focused, you know, drama comes at you, I'm too focused on what I'm going to do, you know, or time, that's okay. Like I've managed my time, you know, I mean, there's so many ways then that you can handle the inevitable, sometimes dragging of life, you know, then you can go for it and just be a little less affected.
Yeah,
for sure.
I love that. I love that.
Mm.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Are we calling it? I think we did it.
Goodness.
And I'm hungry.
I too. I was just thinking. I was like thinking veggie burgers and fries. I think because I was thinking potato chips, and now I'm like, ooh, all the things.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lacey. Thank you so much. It's always so much fun to do these lectures and these chats and everything. And I really love the way that we are on the same page with, and then have different
Yeah.
perspectives and different ideas, and like, well, this worked for me, but this is where what I found worked. And so, yeah, I just really enjoy our time together, and really am grateful for everybody that has joined us today and carved out so much of your time
So much.
to with us to learn more about how you can be successful in 2022, whether it's dance related or career or personal growth or whatever. And, we're here for you. So feel free to chime back in if you're processing everything and you have questions, or celebrate yourself by, sending us an email or messaging below and be like, I'm doing it. Look at my vision board, or whatever the case is. I would love it.
Sure. Awesome. I love that. Yeah. And thank you as always, DeAnna. I love working with you, and it's always fun. I love all the same things, like how we're, we'll be good. And then we're like, oh, this is a little different, or this is a little different. I love it. And everybody that's watching, I hope that you found this to be investment time, and I hope that it's helpful. And yeah, I can't wait for our next one.
If you loved this and you felt like this was going to be helpful for other people, please feel free to share it. They can be listening while they're doing their other things, like their mandatory times. They can be doing a little bit of investment time with that. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And we will see you all next time.
Awesome. Bye, guys.
Bye.